So what about classical music?
What about it?
Do you think the classical music influenced your music style?
Oh, my style, fully. I could not play the guitar the way I play today if it hadn't been for being grounded in classical music. I feel rooted in classical music. I'm not a traditional classical musician who grew up in the conservatory, so I think I'm more a rebel classical musician, but I have the full feeling of that tradition.
Who are your favorite composers?
The usual ones. The greatest composers are also the ones that I like the best. And I don't even know who number one is because it changes whoever I listen to. It could be Mozart, it could be Chopin, it could be sometimes Beethoven, it could sometimes be Bach. Any of those four, and then you have several others which are maybe not quite on the same level, but close. You know, Brahms.
Brahms.
Oh yes. You have Wagner was a tremendous composer with his harmonies, chilling stuff. You know, so powerful. Slightly scary sometimes with his message. Not quite my favorite message, but the music was hypnotic. Mahler and his symphonies. You have also beautiful melodic writers like Puccini with Nessun Dorma and Madame Butterfly and E luceva le stelle. How cool is that? I mean, nobody can write melodies like that. I mean, you know, nobody wrote melodies like that. So there are classical, there's a lot there to learn from, and I love it all. I mean, strictly speaking, classical is classical. It's not Bach. It's not classical. And Bach is Baroque music. You know, you have Renaissance or Renaissance music. You have Baroque. Period of Bach. Handel was tremendous with the Messiahs. How gorgeous his music. He did it always in the same way. He had a certain language that he created, a certain type of, he wrote some sarabans, and they're almost always the same progression, but each time it just really hits you, and they're so powerful, so noble, a noble spirit in music, you know, with very simple means, without any fireworks, although he did fireworks, but it was never flashy, you know. At that time you had Scarlatti, who was so far ahead of his time. Not commercial, but a complete musical genius with all these dissonances. He could be right off the 20th century sometimes with some of his harmonies.
So we have only 2 minutes left, so...
No, we've got way more.
Really?
Yes, don't worry. When is the Sky Academy?
Well, I think
it's at 6?
Yeah, but you should start sound check at 4.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Thank you.
Don't worry. No, we do the interview now, and then we sound check. I can do the sound check just so quickly.
Okay.
You know, this is important. So.
So I think the improvisation is a very important part of the music.
Absolutely.
How do you improvise? I mean, are you improvise based on scales, or is it more spontaneous? What do you think?
Absolutely not scales.
It's more from...
I never think in scales. I know all the scales. I know how to play them. I can tell them apart, but they're just step ladders. They're just ways to travel through the octave from A to B in a quantized fashion. So, you know, it's the skeleton of music. When you talk to someone, you don't think about grammar. You think about the images, the pictures, and the feelings, and that's what I do when I think and when I play on stage and I improvise for maybe 15 minutes, something completely new. I don't think about musical grammar. I don't think about theory. I don't think about anything, in fact. You know, I know the theory, which is why I'm able to do what I do. But that's not in my mind. My mind is completely free from all that. It's just like a blank canvas, and it's interesting for me to see how the journey develops, because I'm just following. You know, I'm just following that which is coming into my mind. It's like a cinema. I can see it and feel it in 3D. I can feel the note in 3D, really. It goes through my body and I can see it in my mind like a light.
Okay.
So, now that was an important question, you know. And where was I?
Well, yeah, the point, do you think the musicians should learn the theories and scales, then forget it? Do you think that is the best way? Or?
Well, you know, it depends on what you want with music. If you want to be a professional musician, of course you have to learn scales and arpeggios and rhythms. You have to learn how to play in time. You have to learn everything.
Yes.
You know, it's a craft. Yeah, like a good craftsman has to learn everything. But that's not yet art. If you want to do art, art is the higher octave of craftsmanship. It's more difficult because for art you need the craftsmanship, and a good artist must be a good craftsman. But a good craftsman does not necessarily have to be a good artist. A good craftsman will do the same thing over and over again. A real artist will always have some new idea and create new life all the time. Not always perfect. Sometimes the craftsman is more perfect doing the same thing over and over again. When you do real art, it's dangerous. You're at the edge of something new. Things can happen. And sometimes it's not perfect, but it's much more alive and it's got more spirit. The other thing is more like a ghost. And the true art has a spirit which lives, and it's a magical spirit because it comes alive in the people who receive. Someone who listens to an album, or someone who reads a novel, or someone who looks at a painter masterpiece by Michelangelo. The painting, the rays go inside that person, and the painting is frozen in time. But in the spirit, inside of the person, it's like melting ice, and it becomes emotional. It starts to come alive in the spirit of the person. When you buy a compact disc, it's frozen in time. The atoms don't move. They move inside of themselves, but they're frozen in time. Once you start hearing it, it unfreezes. It comes to the higher octave and it becomes alive in you. And that's what I mean. And if the substance is so alive that your spirit can resonate with the spirit of the recording, then you have something new. And each time it will sound different. You know, and that's what I'm trying to do when I'm improvising. That's why I go on the journey with improvising, and that's why I'm open. And anything can happen. And it's not always successful. Very often it works, but not always. You know, there is a danger element that it may be less than perfect. Yeah.
So it's the balance between, what is it, Kunst und Poesie?
It's well, Kunst und Poesie is very similar. That's art and poetry, or art and poesy, because poetry is art. Good poetry is art. And bad poetry, well, can be minor art or lesser minor. The worst poetry is when there's no poetry. You know, so yes, of course there must be a balance. There must be a balance, you know. And when I'm improvising, I do try to keep the balance, just like someone who is traveling to a new place for the first time, like you fly an airplane, or you're like a bird, you have the current of the wind, you have to go with it, you know, and you don't quite know, you have to balance. Or you're walking on a difficult path, and yes, you have to balance, and you have to get it right. So you have to make a lot of judgments about what's happening, you know, judgments about what should be the next step, you know, and so yeah, that's basically it.